The rain hammered against the windows like 1,000 desperate fingers seeking shelter, and Marcus Chen stood at his kitchen sink, watching his 7-year-old daughter Emma trace hearts in the condensation on the glass. 5 years of single parenthood had taught him that happiness didn't require much, just moments like these, small and perfect. He'd learned to find joy in the simple things after losing his job at Hartwell Industries. After his wife left, after the world seemed determined to strip away everything he'd built. But Marcus had rebuilt himself, piece by careful piece, into a man who knew that kindness cost nothing and meant everything. When the doorbell rang at 9:47 p.m., piercing through the sound of the storm, his first instinct was concern. Nobody came calling at this hour in their modest apartment building, especially not in weather like this. Emma looked up from her drawing, her dark eyes curious but unafraid. She'd inherited his calm demeanor. Thankfully, Marcus opened the door to find a woman collapsing against the frame, her designer coat soaked through, her face pale as moonlight. She was clutching her chest, gasping for breath, and for a split second he froze. Then instinct took over, the same instinct that had carried him through every crisis since becoming a single father. "Emma, call 911, he said, his voice steady as he caught the woman before she crumpled to the floor. His daughter was already moving, reaching for the phone they'd practiced emergency calls with dozens of times. Marcus lowered the woman gently onto their worn couch, grabbing the blanket Emma had been using earlier. The woman's breathing was shallow and rapid, her lips tinged with blue. Heart attack, maybe? Panic attack? He'd taken a first aid course at the community center last year, one of those free classes he attended whenever possible. Always trying to be better prepared for Emma. "Help is coming," he said softly, tucking the blanket around her trembling frame. "Just breathe. You're safe now." Her eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused, trying to find his face. There was something familiar about her features, the sharp cheekbones, the determined set of her jaw even in distress, but Marcus pushed the thought aside. Right now, she was just someone who needed help. Emma appeared at his side with a glass of water, and Marcus felt that familiar swell of pride. "Good thinking, sweetheart, but let's wait for the paramedics, okay?" The ambulance arrived within 12 minutes, though it felt like hours. Marcus stayed by the woman's side, talking to her in low, calm tones, telling her about Emma's school play next week, about the lemon tree they were trying to grow on their tiny balcony, about anything that might anchor her to consciousness. The paramedics swept in with professional efficiency, asking questions Marcus couldn't fully answer. "Do you know her name, sir?" "No, she just collapsed at my door." "Any known medical conditions?" "I don't know. I've never seen her before." Except that wasn't quite true, was it? As they loaded her onto the stretcher, as the apartment suddenly felt too quiet and too large, Marcus caught another glimpse of her face. Recognition flickered like a candle in the dark corners of his memory. Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Is she going to be okay, Daddy?" "I think so, honey." He knelt down to her level, smoothing back her hair. "You did great tonight. I'm proud of you." That night, after tucking Emma into bed with an extra long story, Marcus sat in the living room staring at the spot where the woman had lain. His phone buzzed. A text from his boss at the hardware store where he'd worked for the past 4 years, asking him to cover an extra shift tomorrow. He'd say yes like he always did. Single fathers didn't have the luxury of turning down hours, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman. Where had he seen her before? 3 days passed before he got his answer. Marcus was helping a customer select paint samples when a black town car pulled up outside the store. The same woman emerged, moving carefully but with unmistakable purpose, and Marcus felt his stomach drop as the pieces finally clicked into place. Victoria Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Industries, the woman who'd signed off on the massive layoffs 5 years ago that had included his position, the woman whose memo had been coldly professional. Restructuring for optimal efficiency. He'd been 32 then, with a 2-year-old daughter and a wife who'd already been planning her exit. The job loss had been the final straw in his marriage, the catalyst for everything that followed: the divorce, the custody battle, the scrambling for any work he could find. And now she was walking into his hardware store. Marcus considered ducking into the back room, but she'd already seen him. Her eyes widened with recognition, and something else. Shame, perhaps, or embarrassment. She approached slowly, and Marcus noticed she looked different than she had in the boardroom 5 years ago. Softer somehow, more human. Less like a marble statue and more like someone who'd been humbled by circumstances, Mr. Chen. Her voice was quiet. Nothing like the authoritative tone he remembered from company meetings. Ms. Hartwell. He kept his tone neutral, professional. Are you feeling better? Thanks to you, yes. She clutched a designer handbag like a shield. The doctor said I had a severe panic attack brought on by extreme stress and anxiety. If you hadn't helped me... She paused, her composure cracking slightly. I came to thank you properly. And to apologize. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. You don't need to... Yes, I do. Victoria glanced around the store, taking in the practical workspace, so different from her glass tower empire. I know who you are, Mr. Chen. I looked up the address after I was hospitalized. When I realized you were one of the people I let go 5 years ago, she drew a shaky breath. I've been carrying that decision like a stone around my neck. Those layoffs, the way we handled them, they were mistakes I've regretted every single day since. Marcus wanted to feel vindictive satisfaction. But looking at her now, this powerful woman who'd collapsed at his door, who'd been brought low enough to seek him out, he felt only a weary sadness. Why were you in my building that night? He asked. Victoria's laugh was bitter. I was visiting my mother. She lives 2 floors below you. I'd just gotten news that the company was being investigated, that everything I'd built was crumbling because I'd prioritized profits over people. The panic attack hit me in the stairwell, and your door was the first one I reached. She met his eyes squarely. You had every reason to close that door in my face. Even if you didn't recognize me then, you could have done the bare minimum. But you didn't. You showed me the kind of humanity I'd forgotten existed. Emma chose that moment to appear. Marcus had brought her along because daycare was closed. She'd been reading in the break room, but now she bounced over, curious about the well-dressed visitor. Is this the lady from the other night, Daddy? Yes, sweetheart. Emma studied Victoria with the uncomplicated directness of childhood. Are you feeling better? Much better, thank you. Victoria's smile was genuine, transforming her entire face. You were very brave, calling for help like that. Daddy says helping people is the most important thing, Emma said matter-of-factly. Victoria's eyes glistened. She looked at Marcus with something that might have been wonder. You've raised an extraordinary daughter, Mr. Chen. Despite everything that happened, despite how Her voice broke. You've built something beautiful. Marcus felt the last of his resentment dissolve. We do our best. I'd like to make amends if you'll let me, Victoria said. Not with money, I know that would be insulting. But I've been restructuring the company, changing how we operate, and I need people who understand what really matters. People who lead with humanity. She paused. I'd like to offer you a position in our new community outreach division. Better hours than what you have here, full benefits, and you'd be helping create programs for families in transition. Marcus stared at her, stunned. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to help me rebuild something that should have had heart from the beginning. You showed me what that looks like when you opened your door to a stranger in a storm. Victoria smiled sadly. The position is yours if you want it. And if you don't, I'll understand completely. But either way, thank you, Mr. Chen. You saved more than just my life that night. Marcus looked down at Emma, who was watching him with those wise, trusting eyes. He thought about the man he'd become in 5 years, forged by hardship into someone who understood that kindness wasn't weakness, that grace wasn't naivety, that the measure of a person lived in small moments of choice. I'll need to think about it, he said finally. But thank you, Miss Hartwell, for the offer and for the apology. She nodded, understanding in her expression. That's all I can ask. As Victoria left the store, Emma slipped her hand into Marcus's. She seems nice now. People can change, sweetheart, Marcus said, squeezing her fingers gently. Sometimes they just need to be reminded of what matters. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus stood at his window watching the city lights blur through fresh rain. He didn't know yet if he'd take Victoria's offer, but he knew one thing with certainty. The man he'd become through struggle and loss was someone his daughter could be proud of. And in the end, that was the only measure of success that truly mattered.